Today is April 16th, 2025, and I was just asked by several different group members to do a video. This is going to be a mishmash video because they asked a whole series of different questions. Most of them dealt with the daily chart. How to read the daily chart, how to pick the best trade candidate for the day, how to know chop zones, and someone else asked me a little bit about zooming. So before I get too deep into it, let's talk about zooming. When you're zooming in on an area on your chart, you want to make it close. We'll just start with the minute chart. Most of you know you can click your mouse and drag over an area and that will zoom that in. It's pretty straightforward. Down here you have a slider bar. New people get a little lost. They'll open their chart and all they see is black. Well, it's probably because you're zoomed in too far over here and it's black. Use your scroll bar at the bottom and zoom over. The other part of zoom is over here on your vertical axis by your price. You can click and drag your mouse up and down to expand and shrink that. Shrinking becomes helpful to see higher up levels that are off the chart when you are at a normal view. Click up here on these two little arrows with the sideways S. Right now, when you see it looking like that, it's manual. You can flip it back to auto and then it's normal. Let's go to Discord. The alerts channel is this private trade channel. This is incredibly important. I talked about this yesterday, but I guess I didn't go into enough detail, and I've talked about this before. When you're in chat, you're going to miss the alerts. So if you want to turn off your chat notifications, you can do that right down here, user settings. You have the ability to go, I can't because I'm the admin and it won't show you the same things that you get. But if you click on there and then you look for the word notifications, you can adjust that. Or you can click on the actual channel and click that gear icon, and I think you can do it that way. Or you can totally mute a channel within our server. But that's probably not the best thing to do because a lot of useful information and discussion will go on in there that isn't happening here. I don't always paste every little thing because then this becomes hard to read. So guys, if this is going to be your big money maker, you just have to acclimate yourself to reading multiple things. Most of you don't know me well enough to know that I have my FAA pilot certification. As a pilot, I have to have complete situation awareness. And one of those things that you learn to do is being able to look at every little thing. And this is minor. This Discord is so minor in comparison to flying. So just thought I'd throw that out there. You need a wide view, and I talk a lot about that on charts. You need to be able to see the full horizon on your charts, whether it be daily or minute. You have to look left, you have to look right, but mostly you have to look left. Past price history is going to mean everything because price, it will return to the scene of the crime over and over again. Back here on Discord, I initially will post the levels as quickly as I possibly can. When I'm hearing the stocks hitting the scanner, I do some quick levels. I put those up, then I quickly check the news. I check the float and all of that information as fast as I can, and then I'll add additional commentary. I will add additional notices about specific levels that I have added, and I may even come back and add more levels. I can't do that all in a split second. It takes time. And if there's a halt or some reason I'm just hanging out and not doing anything with it, I'm waiting for the price to move or something, I'll look at the chart some more. I'll look at the daily chart. I'll see if I missed anything. I'm constantly going back and researching. And when I talk about research, it really has a lot to do with the chart itself. Yes, sometimes I put stocks up here that mean nothing, but that doesn't mean it won't set up later in the day. Sometimes they won't set up later in the day, and I will remove them. I am giving you the information out the gate, and as the day goes on, as stocks present themselves, but you have to come in, keep checking to see if I've added anything. And so unless you're coming back here, you're not going to see it. So just keep coming back here. This is the whole point of you being in this group, is for this alert channel. And in terms of filtering down to which stock is going to be the best candidate, I don't always know that right out the gate. I don't have a crystal ball. But as best as I can do, I will add information. Like if price is very close to a critical level, it's probably not going to go anywhere. If there isn't any fresh news, it's probably not going to go anywhere. Sometimes fresh news comes out later in the day. So if I post something that says no fresh news, that doesn't mean news won't come out later. This is why you have to keep referring back and do some of your own research, right? Sometimes you'll be the one that'll say, oh, they came out with the news 2 hours after I posted it. And sometimes I'll remove it and then they come out with the news. SBEV, I was just looking for continuation. People were talking about it in chat when I came in before 5 in the morning. And so I just said, hey, it's moving again. Maybe we'll see something. It never really did do much today. This one had news, but I did post that it needed to prove the 200 EMA for continuation. Okay, that's key. If you see me post something like that, I know that a lot of you did and you were watching to see what does it mean for it to prove a level. Price needs to come down. It literally needs to touch this EMA to prove it and hold it or bounce up off of it with a higher price. It needs to prove that it's going to hold the 200 EMA as support for continuation. So that's what that means. And as you see, this stock really didn't do anything because it never did prove the 200 EMA. I know some people said, oh, there it goes. It proved the 50. It's going to go. But we've later found out that, hey, price came back down. It found the 200 and then it failed. So I did mention this. So if you traded that one and wondered why it didn't do anything, it's because you missed this little note. Also, I mentioned some chop, okay? And there were some critical levels and all of that. TGL, it retested the pre-market high, which I mentioned here, caution at the pre-market high, and that's as high as it went today. This turned out to be a pretty good stock to trade. It kept hitting the scanner. We had some very tight levels, but it's a cheap stock. You'll see that a lot with these cheap stocks. They'll have levels that are pretty tight, but the benefit of that is you can use them for the stairs. So don't get frustrated if you don't see a lot of range here. So you're going to be using these as stairs to climb up to the next target and hold. There was some news. There was some short interest. That's going to give you some momentum to hit some targets. And here we saw it was hitting targets. And here's that TGL that's on its way to the pre-market high. This one, I really didn't know what to say about this one. Okay, there was no news. It was Asian. I didn't know why it was running. If it did set up and continue, maybe I would comment further. But it really didn't do much. And here's TGL, hit the pre-market high. These alerts, as I post them, I will continue to update. When it hits a target, that means come check your chart and see what it's doing. Is it setting up for a continuation? Can I get in on a dip? When I update the progress of a stock that's moving throughout the day, this is an opportunity to potentially take a trade. It hit a target. It doesn't mean get in right there. It means look at your chart, wait for the pullback, look for the setup on continuation and get in at the support. And this is where the stairs come in. Hits a target, it's going to pull back to the level just below it. And you're looking for a setup at that lower level where it's holding support for continuation. That's what that means. Okay. You use these alerts in here. When you see me say something about chop on a chart or not a clean chart, it's not going to be the best candidate. I wouldn't pick that one. It will be a scalp opportunity. If you see something like choppy or not a clean chart, when I say it's a fairly clean chart, that's a good candidate. Fairly clean chart. And if I add gap information, that's a good thing to look for as well. I'm typing fast. I'm checking charts. I may be even managing my own trades. I'm answering questions in the group. I can see I've got 3 questions there waiting for me right now while I'm trying to put this video together. Look for as much information. Here I said I'd consider anything above 3 to be a scalp zone and possibly choppy. Do you really want to get into a scalp or deal with chop? Well, that should help you understand that anything above 3, I don't think I want to trade. I want to exit at 3. Okay. So that's how you use the alerts page. So let's go to the chart. First thing when I'm drawing levels on a chart is I go to the daily chart. This is DXF, okay? And we had this 1085 level right here, and I made that thick. But initially, if you just want to use the most recent, that's all you needed for this one, to find the critical level. And the level of chop was this $10.85. Do you see how those tails were kind of in that? That's where things just, in my opinion, started to get really choppy area. We had a top of a candle here. Do you see that body candle top? We had the EMA, the 50 EMA flattening there. That's kind of why I drew it that way. You don't really need to go any farther back, but if you want to go farther back, you can take that level all the way back and see what else it lines up with. And do you see how this was really the dead giveaway? It found support there. Previous support is going to be new resistance. Resistance here, support here, resistance and support there. And here we are with a flat 50 EMA. So this is definitely a critical level. But initially, when you're first looking at it, if you don't take it way far back in time, it's just a chop level right there. And that's enough. That's all you need to know. If you see a flat 50 EMA, for a long period of time. And I'd say that's a long period of time, starting in February all the way to just now, basically. Initially, you're just going to look for the most recent move. Okay, that's the easiest way. Next, I'm looking for wick tops. I didn't match it here. I'd probably put one right there. Mark that, and that will be at $13. And then I like to put alerts there. Now, if there's a long range of no wick tops and it's a long slide, sometimes I'll just mark the candle bodies. Okay, in this case, I kind of did because there was some range there, but you see how I was marking the candle bodies? on this one. There's a wick top. I really prefer the wick tops. To me, wick tops, especially this type, means something. If you're just looking for wick tops, you're going to be doing really, really well. I don't really care too much about wick bottoms. Wick tops are my priority. Candle body tops, if I don't have any wick tops for a long stretch, like several dollars, then I'll mark a candle body. See, this candle body lined up with this wick bottom. So that made sense to me. That 14, you can go back to the alerts and see, but it was in the 14 range. That was a wick bottom and a body top. That's why I did that one. Zoom in a little bit more. You can see it pretty close to it. So on this one, pretty close to a candle top. And this one, I can't remember why I drew this one. Oh, because of this tail right here. And it went through several. So it just, to me, sometimes I'll just look for things like that. When you're looking for chop zones, wick bottoms will matter. That's kind of how I look for those sorts of things. And you may not get all of them, but over time you will. And then over here, I didn't really use this too much other than to confirm this level because I was interested in that flat 50 EMA area. BCTX, we had a potential chop zone right here. Do you see that? And what this was support for a long period of time. Support. Do you see how that was support? Support on a daily chart is going to be resistance. It was this 560 level. I just found a couple of tails that hit there. That's telling me something. 540 because the top of this wick here met with the bottom of this doji. And a doji kind of tells you a lot of information really. But when it can meet up with another candle, that's confirming that this is an important level that you really want to watch out for. This was even more significant because this was previous support and it's going to be future resistance if it ever hits that. So different from what I would consider a critical level because this was just something that held for a long period of time. That's going to be resistance, probably for a while. So that's what you're looking for when it hits this level. This would be a critical level right here, this 540. Oh, and someone asked me to talk about STBX. This was a stock that I had mentioned in Discord, but I told the group I really didn't know how I felt about this one. It was just climbing super fast. And by the time she entered, it was on this candle right here, above $3. I think she said she entered at $3.10, right here. Think about this for just a minute. It had just made an 80% move in 15 minutes, an 80% move. It did hold this stair, right? It came up, hit this target, held this stair, hit this target, hadn't come back to this one, pushed through even farther, still hadn't come back to this one. So if it was going to climb the stairs and then continue, it needed to come back down here. It didn't even tail to this one. It hadn't even proved this $3 level yet. In order to enter above this level, it needs to prove this level. 80% is a gigantic move. So we need to prove this level. What we need to see is here we have a pullback, lower volume, smaller candle, a drop in price. So clearly on a pullback. Let it see how it's going to treat this Discord level, this $3 Discord level. Did it like it? No, it started to fail at that level. So that was not an entry. You have to allow it to prove the Discord level to consider an entry. Otherwise, you're just chasing, okay? And I want to go back to Discord again. The comment was made that only 4 people made money today. And I don't know how you know that if you've interviewed everybody in the group and if they were willing to tell you if they made money or not. Seeing money bags doesn't mean somebody made money, okay? It doesn't mean somebody even traded it. It's just people can react however they want to react. But what that usually indicates, as far as I'm concerned, for me personally, usually means I'm in the green on that, okay? And you guys by now know how I trade. I usually will sell at a target when trend is showing that it is getting exhausted and I'm at a top. But again, when it comes to these Discord levels, I will give you as much information as I possibly can. You want to look for things where I say critical level. That doesn't mean price is going to go to that level today necessarily, but if it does reach that level, it's probably done when it hits that. If I say something like gap, that's going to catch your attention. You're going to want to focus on that. Because I'm posting doesn't mean get in now. You have to wait for the setup. And if you don't know what the setup is yet, you need to study these videos more. I have covered this over so much. Every video I do talks about setups, talks about trend, talks about all these kinds of things. As far as people making money, there's no way for you to know who made money today. There's a lot of people in here that do not use these emojis. There's a lot of people here who are very private. You wouldn't even know they're here. So for you to just think that because 3 people like this or because you saw 4 money bags today, That doesn't mean only 4 people traded. Now I put a check mark if it has reached a target. It doesn't mean I've traded it. Doesn't mean I haven't traded it. It just means it reached a target. And I need that because I use that for my own personal reference when I'm looking back, if I'm back testing or referring back in time. I want to know if something reached a target. And so I just look for the blue check marks. Anyway, I hope this is helpful to you. If you have any questions, let me know and we'll talk soon.